Go ahead and close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. The whisper in the dark, the flicker of temptation, the heat rising in your body when you want something you're not supposed to want. Or that collapse in your chest that you feel when you don't feel seen, and then all the self-limiting beliefs start flooding in. We've all felt it. The pull toward the forbidden, the thrill of desire, the intoxicating edge between holiness and chaos, and the shrinking and playing small out of fear. In Jewish mysticism, that pulse, that force has a name, the Yetzer Hara. It translates as the evil inclination, or otherwise known as the inner opponent. But let's be honest, evil is far too flat a word for something this magnetic, this delicious, this dangerously alive. Because what if the Yetzer Hara isn't here to destroy you, but to seduce you into your own becoming? What if it's the raw fire, the primal hunger, the animal instinct that, when claimed, becomes the very fuel for your greatest light? In today's episode, I'm going to strip back the shame, lean into the raunchy, alluring power of our shadow, and explore how desire itself, yes, I'm talking the messy, lustful, greedy, ravenous desire, can be alchemized into the holiest, most expansive force in your life. So, are you ready to dance with your demons and to flirt with your shadow? To make love with the forbidden parts of yourself until they reveal their sacred truth? Then let's get into it. Becoming a co-creator with the Creator is your birthright. Together, we'll journey into your deepest authenticity. Because the more you align with who you truly are, the more effortlessly you call in the life that you desire and deserve. And most importantly, the more you step into your soul's highest purpose. Welcome to the Manifestation Method podcast, your number one source for Kabbalistic manifestation. Here we combine the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah, modern psychology, and quantum physics to help you achieve real, tangible manifestation results with my proven Abra method. I'm Ayelet Polonsky, and I'm here to guide you on your journey of manifesting a life that is aligned, expansive, and deeply connected to your highest self through the sacred energetic mechanics of Kabbalistic manifestation. To learn how to use Kabbalistic manifestation to transform your life from the inside out, go to ayeletpolonsky.com or download the Manifestation Method app. Let's open the gates of manifestation together. When people hear the words Yetzer Hara, they often imagine a devil or a red creature with horns tempting you into sin. But in Kabbalah, it's not external at all. The Yetzer Hara, or the evil inclination, is a built-in part of the human psyche. In fact, the word Yetzer comes from the Hebrew root Yetzar, which means to form or to create. And this is fascinating in my opinion because it means the Yetzer Hara is not just an inclination, but it's a creative force. And without it, there would be no drive to build, to pursue, to chase, to conquer, to overcome and transform. In fact, the Talmud says that if not for the Yetzer Hara, no man would ever build a house or take a wife or have children or engage in business. And that's wild, right? It means that your ambition, your attraction, your hunger for intimacy and success, that all of that springs from the same energy that we label as evil. And so here's where I think is the paradox, that it's not evil, it's raw, it's primal, it's instinctual. And the problem comes when it runs unchecked or unmastered, because that's when it consumes. But when it's directed, it becomes holy fuel. So the way I see it is that the Yetzer Hara is not the villain, it's the wild horse. And your soul's job is not to kill the horse, but to ride it, to harness its power and direct it towards the divine. And when we talk about the Yetzer Hara, people often get confused. It is the voice of we ask ourselves, is it the voice of temptation, pulling me toward lust, greed, indulgence? Or is it the voice of fear that keeps me stuck in self-doubt and resistance? And the answer is actually both. And the beauty really lies in understanding how these two faces are really one force. So let's start with the classical picture. In the Talmud and in the Midrash, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination or inner opponent, is described as the energy of temptation. It's what pulls you towards what's forbidden. It pulls you towards what's lustful and greedy and gluttonous. And without it, our sages say that no one would build a house, no one would get married, no one would have children. And that means that your ambition, your drive for pleasure, your hunger for connection, all of it comes from the same fire that we call the Yetzer Hara. So on one level, it's that rush of desire, right? I want it, I crave it, I need it, I can't stop thinking about it. And if you collapse into that, it can consume you. But if you harness it, then that same fire becomes creative, generative, and holy. Okay, but then there's another part to the Yetzer Hara, another face to it, let's say. And our mystics later on, and not just our mystics, let's even call it our own inner experience, shows us that the Yetzer Hara doesn't always show up as wild temptation and desire and lust, right? Sometimes the Yetzer Hara is the voice that whispers to us in a totally different way, in a way that says, who do you think you are? Don't even try it. Just stay safe. Stay small. You're not enough. You're not capable, right? And this is the voice of fear, the voice of contraction. It's not trying to seduce you into indulgence. It's trying to freeze you into inaction. And this is what modern psychology would call the protector part, right? And what Gay Hendricks in his book calls the upper limit problem, which we'll unpack these two ideas in a moment. But for now, just hold in your understanding that your evil inclination, aka inner opponent, keeps you in your comfort zone because growth and expansion is scary and risky. And so when you look at these two faces of the evil inclination, they might at first seem like opposite forces, right? You might have, it might sound like one face or voice says, go too far. Just go for it. Cheat on your spouse. Eat the third, fourth, fifth piece of chocolate cake. Steal the thing, etc. Right? While the other part of this Yetzer Hara says, don't go anywhere. Stay put. Say no to the opportunity. No to that, to the attention. Say no to the relationship, right? Etc. And so one seems to want to burn you up in overindulgence, while the other face of this force wants to smother your fire with fear and self-sabotage. But in truth, they are just two sides of the same coin. So what I mean by this is both the tempting yes and the paralyzing no have the same agenda. And that is to keep you out of your soul's alignment, to keep you away from stepping into your greatness. And so if you think about it, whether you collapse into addictive temptation or retreat into fear and self-doubt, the result is the same. Ultimately, the result is you're not living in the fullness of your soul. And so you don't expand into your potential. You don't step forward into the risk of becoming who you really are. And here's what I believe is the deeper teaching, right? And that is that the Yetzer Hara is not evil in the simplistic sense. It's just resistance. It's the inner opponent. Its whole purpose is to create a barrier, a block, so that when you choose differently, when you rise above the resistance, right, when you channel the energy instead of collapsing into it, you reveal more light. Hi, Ayelet here. I just wanted to pop in and say I am so excited to officially introduce the Manifestation Method portal, membership, and app. This is your home for all things Kabbalistic manifestation. You'll get access to my monthly live workshops, soul deep hypno activations and attunements, all of our manifestation courses, and our global community of manifestors. And the best part? It's just $26 a month. That's less than a latte a week. Come manifest alongside me and start creating the life you desire and deserve. Head over to ayeletpolonsky.com to join us. Right? And this is what Kabbalah is all about. Vessels and light, constantly shattering of an old vessel, an old paradigm, in order to expand into a new sized vessel so that new vessel could hold more light. And there is a resistance in the shattering of an old vessel becoming an expanded vessel. Right? So when you can harness that resistance piece and rise above it, you're actually creating an expanded vessel that can then hold more light. Right? And this is also why the sages say that the greater the soul, the greater the Yetzer Hara. Okay, so if you feel intense temptation or deep fear or paralyzing resistance, it's not proof of your weakness. It's actually just proof of your potential. Right? The force against you is only that strong because the light within you is enormous and it wants to burst through and out. And so the next time you hear the voice, whether it's saying to you, yes, give in, take it, overdo it, or whether it's saying, no, don't even try, you're not ready, stay small, recognize it as the same inner opponent. Smile at it. Right? Because if the Yetzer Hara is this loud, it means that you're standing right at the threshold of something sacred. And now I want to take this a little bit deeper. Okay, let's unpack the voice of the inner opponent that says you're not ready, you're not good enough, you're not capable. Let's unpack that face of this force. Right? It's the voice that tries to keep you playing small, keeps you doubting your worth, keeps you questioning why others have it easier than you do, keeps you asking, am I worthy for charging this much for my product or my offer, right? And that voice might not just be only fear alone, and according to Kabbalah, we are all born with these, with two polarizing opposite forces inside of us. Right? And so one force is actually our inner cheerleader. It's the force that builds us up, that gives us the pep talk. It reminds you of how worthy you are. And that voice will give you that boost of confidence you need to go on that date or give over the speech or charge a little bit more for your product. Right? And so this force is actually called your Yetzer Tov. That's your good inclination. And we all have that as well. Okay, but on the other side of that polarity is what we've been talking about, is the Yetzer Hara, the inner opponent. And it's the inner opponent That's the part of you that brings up resistance and causes you to stay in your comfort zone so that you can't grow, expand, achieve, right? And it really just wants you to play small because it's trying to protect something, it's trying to keep you safe, let's say. And even according to IFS, internal family systems language, the inner opponent is often seen as like your ultimate protector part. Okay, so we all have created protector parts that are there to protect something that is a little bit vulnerable, or parts that have been exiled, parts that are just too scary to look at. And so if you think of it this way, from a very young age, when we experience trauma or painful moments, we often create parts of ourselves that step in to protect us. So, for example, maybe you had a parent who was critical or dismissive. And as a child, maybe you learned that being too visible or too outspoken or too vulnerable just wasn't safe. And so as a result, you created a protector part, right? A voice inside that now says, don't speak up, don't try, don't risk it. And so that's the Yetzer Hara doing its job, trying to shield you from re-experiencing old pain. And the voice of the Yetzer Hara in this instance can sound like, what if you fail? Who do you think you are? You're not qualified. And so it's not trying to ruin your life, but it is simply trying to protect you by keeping you within your comfort zone. Okay, keeping you playing in the realm of what's familiar. And this ties directly into a concept that you may have heard of in Gay Hendricks' book titled The Big Leap. And it's known as the upper limit problem. I really recommend this book if you haven't read it. He says that there's this invisible ceiling that we place on our success. It's an invisible ceiling that we place on our love, on our joy, on abundance. And so as you start to grow, things start to expand. And suddenly the inner opponent kicks in and says, this is too much. You can't handle it. You might get burned, right? You might actually be seen and then you're exposed. Better self-sabotage before it all falls apart. And so the upper limit is just another face of the Yetzer Hara. Okay, it keeps you under the cap of your potential so that you can't actualize your potential, because actualizing your potential actually means expanding into greatness. And at the end of the day, so many of us are so afraid of our greatness. And here's the catch though. The cost of staying in our comfort zones is super high. It leads to a life lived with untapped potential and anxiety. It leads to delaying dreams and settling for less. It leads to a perpetual low-level feeling of, I'm not enough. And now let's zoom out even further, right? Scientists estimate that the average person thinks up to 80,000 thoughts per day. 80,000. And here's the shocking part. Nearly 80% of those thoughts are negative, which means the majority of what's moving through your mind in any given day is doubt, fear, comparison, criticism, self-judgment, right? The exact language that your inner opponent speaks. So think about it like this. If 80% of your thoughts are being fed by the Yetzer Hara, how can we possibly manifest abundance, love, and goodness? Right? I always say, thoughts become things. It's a manifestation principle. And if your thoughts are 80% negative, limiting, doubting, how can you possibly manifest the things that you're actually longing for? Right? And ultimately, it goes even deeper than your thoughts, because thoughts become feelings, and feelings radiate as your vibration. And I always say that manifestation isn't about sprinkling affirmations on top of fear. No, it's about the vibration you live in every day. Right? And if that vibration is dominated by negativity, then of course your external reality is going to inevitably mirror that. right? Because you attract what you are, not just what you think you want. And you attract what you are a vibrational match for. It's just a law, a spiritual law in the universe. Okay, but here's the hope in all of this. And that is that thoughts are not facts, right? The problem isn't that you have negative thoughts. We all do. The problem is when we unconsciously let those thoughts drive the car of our lives. And so the solution to this becomes awareness. When you can notice the inner opponent and consciously choose differently, you begin to shift the scales. Things come more into balance. And so a simple practice that I use is what I call fear into faith. So every time that negative thought arises, saying you can't, you're not enough, it just won't work, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what if the opposite is also true? What if I am enough? What if it will work out? What if I am capable? And then I ask myself, what if this resistance is actually a doorway, right? What if this doorway is the exact portal that is there to guide you towards the evolution of your soul, to your greatness, to your self-actualization, right? And then I ask myself, what if this is my chance to expand instead of contract, right? How would you live if you knew that you got to choose expansion rather than contraction every time the Yetzer Hara presented itself? That's real energetic mastery. And that reframe turns the voice of defeat into a signal that you are standing on sacred ground. And if it feels terrifying but important, it's actually probably holy, right? That is often where your tikkun, your soul's correction, sits, right? Right behind the resistance. And when you move through fear anyway, you reclaim energy that was trapped in self-doubt. Kabbalah teaches that this is part of the very purpose of creation, to elevate fallen sparks. And every time you choose fear over faith, expansion over contraction, you elevate sparks of divine light. And the Yetzer Hara then loses its grip, and your higher self steps forward. And that's what creates success. Not waiting until you feel ready, not eliminating all fear, but moving anyway, moving right through the resistance. That is real mastery. Because the truth is, your soul didn't come here to play small, not at all. It came here to grow and expand and elevate and to realize its destiny. And every time you do, you're not just changing your own life, you're actually fulfilling the very reason that creation exists in the first place. And let's also let's not be shy here, right? Let's talk frankly. Desire is erotic. And the Yetzer Hara is erotic energy in its rawest form. And so if you think about it like this, desire pulls you out of passivity, right? Desire gets your blood moving. It gets things moving out of stagnation. It actually wakes your body up, and desire makes you feel alive and come alive. And that aliveness can be terrifying. For a lot of people, it's unpredictable. It's messy. It's not always socially acceptable. Right? And the mystics teach that the holiest sparks are hidden in the darkest places, inside the klipot. And what this means is that inside every forbidden urge is a holy seed, a divine spark just waiting to be liberated. But in order to liberate it, you have to be willing to go into the darkness. And so an example of this would be sexual desire. Right? In its distorted form, it can lead to exploitation, obsession, addiction. But in its holy form, it leads to union and intimacy and ecstasy that mirrors the soul's union with the divine. and which is what we all want at the end of the day. We want to come back to that place, that space, that feeling of oneness, that feeling we had when we were inside our mother's wombs and we were not separated from mom. We were not separated from source. We were one with creative energy. We were one with mother, with God, right? And then what happens is we experience childbirth and we have our first real big trauma where we are separated from our source. We then become separated from that feeling of oneness. This is where duality begins, right? And so much of our trauma and wanting to heal is this desire to come back to that union of oneness, right? To come back to that feeling of God lives inside of me. And that is what this desire is ultimately here to teach us, is how to create that intimacy, how to come back to that feeling of union, right? But in a way that is elevated, right? Because whether it's coming from a side of wanting to tempt you into exploitation or addiction, right? Or whether it's there to tempt you into unification, union, connection, bonding, right? The same fire fuels both. The only difference is how it's directed. And that's where you come into the driver's seat as the driver. And so that is also why the Yetzer Hara is so seductive, right? It's like a lover who tests you. And if you collapse into it, you lose yourself. But if you meet it with strength and presence, it electrifies you and it takes you higher. And then you can really feel that ecstatic love affair with God, right? And even modern psychology gives us language for what our Kabbalistic sages already knew, right? Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we reject, that we repress, that we exile. And the shadow holds the impulses that we're ashamed of. The shadow holds the impulses for lust and greed and jealousy and rage and laziness, right? But here is the paradox. The more you repress these parts, the more they control you from the underground. So you think you're being holy by denying your desire, but actually you're just handing it the keys to your subconscious. In fact, Jung says that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. I love that. So good. So good. And Kabbalah echoes this. It says that the Yetzer Hara is not here to be annihilated. It's here to be elevated, to be transformed, to be integrated. In fact, Kabbalah says that both of these yetzers, the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Ra, the good inclination and the evil inclination, are ultimately, they're both good, right? Because look at what we're exploring together here today. How much good can come out of the Yetzer Hara when channeled with self-mastery. Okay, in fact, the presence of the Yetzer Hara is just proof of your greatness. If your soul didn't have enormous potential, there'd be no need for such powerful resistance. So the intensity of your temptation is directly proportional to the magnitude of your light. Right? Really let that sink in. And so how do we work with this inclination? How do we turn temptation into transformation? Well, there's a few steps that you can take to help you kind of map this process of elevation. And so the first step would be to witness the whisper, right? The whisper being the voice of the Yetzer Hara, the inner opponent, right? That first step is awareness. So the moment you feel tempted to overeat, to lust after someone that's unavailable, the temptation to sabotage or to lash out, the moment you become aware of that temptation, pause. Don't shame it. Don't collapse into it. Just name it. Oh, yes, this is my Yetzer Hara, right? So naming it creates space, right? A space where you can now deepen your awareness of what's actually going on, which then takes us to step 2, which is to decode the desire, right? Every desire has a hidden longing. So, for example, lust might hide a longing for intimacy. Greed might hide a longing for security. Jealousy might hide a longing to be seen. And anger might hide a longing for justice. And so when you peel back the outer shell, you actually find the holy spark that lives inside the outer shell. And then finally, and this is where the alchemy comes in, that is transmute the energy. So now you take that raw energy and you redirect it. You channel lust into passion for your art or your work, or deeper lovemaking with your partner. Or you channel greed into a drive to create abundance that serves the collective. Or you channel anger into activism or boundary setting or truth telling. Right? This is alchemy. This is manifestation. You don't kill the fire. You use the fire to cook your meal. And for me, the Yetzer Hara often shows up right before I'm about to step into a new level of leadership. I'll hear its whispers. I'll hear it saying, right, who are you to teach this? Are you sure you're ready? Why don't you just distract yourself? Why don't you just scroll or numb or indulge? And in the past, I might have listened to that voice. I might have allowed it to convince me or seduce me rather into self-sabotage or convince me to back out and stay small. But over time, I learned to recognize that, if the Yetzer Hara is loud right now, it must mean that my breakthrough is close. And so that's when I actually lean in. Now I breathe with it. I let it burn me open instead of shut me down. And almost every time, the very thing that felt like temptation transforms into revelation. And so my question to you is, where are you being seduced right now? What craving, what temptation, what forbidden fruit is dangling in your life? And instead of demonizing it, can you try to hear, be with it long enough to hear the truth that it wants to reveal to you? And there's also a somatic practice that you can do the next time you feel this desire rising for my somatically inclined listeners. It's don't run from it, right? Just close your eyes, place your hand where you feel it. Maybe it's your belly, maybe your heart, maybe your throat, and breathe into it. Instead of collapsing into fantasy or shame, simply stay present. Ask it, what is this desire trying to teach me? Okay, and then you can journal the answers. You can journal the answers to the questions. What do I secretly want but shame myself for wanting? Right? Get really honest with yourself. Okay, you can ask yourself and journal on the question, what holy spark might be hidden inside that desire? Right? Or how can I channel this craving toward my growth instead of my destruction? This is real inner work. And it takes a real discipline to sit down and actually take the time to tap into the awareness long enough to really see what's there. Right? And so remember, the Yetzer Hara is not a flaw. It's a feature. It's the tension that makes free that makes free will possible. Right? And without it, you'd be a robot. Whereas with it, you get to choose. And in that choosing, you actually reveal your soul's greatness. And so here's the thing. Okay, to sum this all up. The Yetzer Hara is not here to ruin you. It's here to seduce you into power, into wholeness, into light. And every temptation becomes a portal. Every craving, an initiation. And yeah, sometimes it is going to show up as that cruel inner voice, the one that says, there must be something wrong with me, or I'm broken, or I'll never get it right. And when that happens, just remember this. Those thoughts are not proof of your unworthiness. They are proof that you are standing at the doorway of your next level light. The Yetzer Hara's job is to throw shadows on the places where your soul is already glowing. Because if it can convince you to dim yourself, then it wins. So when that whisper comes, do me a favor. Don't mistake it for truth. Get honest with yourself. Pause, breathe, and say to yourself, this voice is not me. This is the resistance that arises when I'm closest to my breakthrough. Right? And then the question is not, do I destroy it? The question is, do I have the courage to dance with it? To flirt with it long enough to uncover its secret gifts? Because when you do, you will discover that the same urge you once thought was your downfall is actually the wild, holy fire that makes you unstoppable. And so tonight, when you feel the whisper of temptation in your ear, don't run, don't collapse, smile, because you're actually in the presence of your greatest teacher. And if you want to truly master this, not just resisting your Yetzer Hara, but learning how to alchemize it into light, how to use every challenge as fuel for your manifestation journey, then I invite you to join me inside the Manifestation Method membership. This is where we really go deep, deep, deep together. It is next level inner work where I guide you personally through my top level courses, through my guided hypno activations. There's hypnosis in there, neuro-linguistic programming, visualization, practical tools, live coaching calls with me every month. And it's the space where you learn to turn the very things that once tripped you up into the exact medicine that sets you free. And so if you're ready to elevate, to stop fighting against yourself and start rising with yourself, please come join me. The link is in the show notes, and I can't wait to see you inside, to be in this sacred portal, this community together. With so much love, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And may you walk forward this week with courage, clarity, and the unshakable knowing that even your shadows are here to serve your light. Until next time, here's to your rising. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going inside the Manifestation Method Portal app, your #1 destination for Kabbalistic manifestation. Inside, you'll unlock the secrets of manifestation through my proven Abra method, rooted in Kabbalah, psychology, and quantum physics, designed to help you manifest real, tangible results from the inside out. Join our global community of manifestors, explore our signature courses, monthly live manifestation workshops with me, Ayelet, and access our transformational hypno activations and attunements to rewire limiting beliefs and align with your soul's purpose. The app is available now on the Apple App Store and Google Play. To sign up, head over to ayeletpolonsky.com. Becoming a co-creator with the Creator is your birthright. Let's manifest the life you desire and deserve together.